Hi and welcome to Combat Thoughts. I'm Robbie.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Alex.
We're going to take a deeper look at culture and philosophy behind martial arts. Cool. All right. So we're live. John, take us back to the start. Was Jiu-Jitsu the first martial art? Did you get into something else beforehand?
No, I grew up wrestling. The area I live in Pennsylvania, it's a huge wrestling area. It's kind of a hotbed for it in the country. So like ever since I was maybe 10, I started wrestling, and I wrestled all throughout high school and stuff like that. And then after high school, I had a couple college offers, but college wasn't really for me. Kind of figured that out pretty early, luckily, and I ended up not going to college. So that's when I got into jiu-jitsu.
So in England, wrestling is not
a thing, really.
Not really a thing. Yeah, I was going to say not as developed, but it's not developed at all. Is it only really at college that it starts getting? Is it only college where you start getting really competitive, or do people get into it as a pro sport sort of? I have no idea about the background of it.
Okay. So like kind of like American wrestling is like it's like any other sport. Like every school has a wrestling team. Like your high school has just like they have the basketball or the baseball team or wherever the hell you guys play in England team. We have the wrestling team too. So it's like ever since I was like a kid, I wrestled for like the local high school's youth team from the time like I was like 10 or something like that, and then all throughout high school you wrestle and stuff like that. And the whole goal when you're you're a kid wrestling is to get a good college scholarship. Like that's like the goal at the end that everybody talks about. Like, oh, if you're a good wrestler, you can go to a good school, get a scholarship, not pay as much and stuff like that. Like, so like, wrestling's extremely competitive in high school and things like that, because people are constantly trying to prove themselves for a scholarship and things like that. And like I said, especially where I live, like, wrestling's bigger than, any other sport. Like wrestling's what you do in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah. Was that the original intention then, to get the scholarship and go for it?
That was always the intention. And like I said, like when I got to like my junior year in high school, so the second to last year, I kind of was realizing like, I don't think I want to go to college. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And, I kind of, had enough of wrestling at that point. And, even though I had some scholarships, I didn't take them because, I didn't know what I wanted at that point. And that's kind of the point I found jiu-jitsu too. So it kind of like, worked out. Like I took a little break after wrestling, but then, found jiu-jitsu and, became obsessed with it, and then realized like, oh, this is what I want to do.
That's cool.
Nice.
Did you enjoy doing wrestling as you were doing it, or was it more of a, right? Was it that goal of a scholarship that was kind of keeping you doing it, or did you actually enjoy? Yeah,
definitely. By the end, it was more just, get the good scholarship and things like that. Wrestling's a lot different than jiu-jitsu. And even though it's a grappling sport, the mentality in wrestling is so much more hard-nosed, grind, push, make yourself uncomfortable. Like in wrestling, you were basically taught if you're not miserable, you're not working hard. And like, by the end of it, like I said, by my penultimate year in high school, it was just like, I've had enough of this shit, man. I've been cutting weight for, how many years, 2 times a week. Because in wrestling, in high school, you wrestle on Saturday and you wrestle on Wednesday, and you got to make weight both days. And, you're cutting weight constantly, and you're fucking fighting for like, 4 months out of the year, and you'll get like 40, 50 matches in a wrestling season. And it's like, and that's why people, when they're like, oh my God, these wrestlers are good in competitions. It's not, we've just done it a million times. We're used to the nerves and stuff like that. It's no big deal. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. That makes sense. What I find interesting though, is that you say, so you could cut weight for like twice, 2 competitions basically in like a space of say a week. That seems quite taxing. Even I know it's a young person's body, but but
still, no,
it's quite pretty. What's your opinion on that looking back? Do you think it's
fucking stupid? There's no other way to put it. But I'll be real with you, like when I got to high school, like because it was worse before I got to high school, obviously. They started doing at the beginning of the year, they would take every kid into the locker room, and the trainer would have to measure your body fat with like one of the little calipers, and you would have to pass a hydration test. I'm dead serious. And you could only lose so much weight per week. And if you didn't, like if you were trying to go down to the next weight class, like later in the season, like you had to lose X amount each week so that you would be eligible to do that. Because if you lost too much in a weight, PIAA, that the Pennsylvania Intramural Athletic Association, would step in and be like, nah, this kid's gonna hurt himself. This kid's gonna get himself in trouble. And like, it's good that they did, because back in the day, you know, people were stupid with it. I mean, we were still stupid with it, and, you know, did anything we could to cheat the tests and stuff like that. But, you know, it was at least a little bit better.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is a little bit of oversight. So wrestling, mostly for the prize at the end of it, and you found it quite hard. But you clearly liked grappling enough to move on to something else.
I always loved, you know, just going in every day, you know, working my ass off, you know, fighting with the guys and, you know, bullshitting around and having fun like that. I always loved that. I love that. But, you know, after, you know, like I said, competing so much for so many years and cutting weight and stress and trying to get into a good college and blah, 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 it was just like, no, I'm good. It kind of took the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah.
So how did you find the jiu-jitsu afterwards? Did you stumble across it? Did you go out searching for it?
So me and my one good friend who wrestled together in high school, we always wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Like we always would watch, you know, UFC when that was on and stuff like that. We're like, man, how cool would jiu-jitsu be? Blah, blah, blah. And we would watch, you know, YouTube videos and mastering the system and like all the old Eddie Bravo shit. And we'd be like, oh, how cool would this be to learn? And, you know, there was like maybe one or two gyms in our area that, you know, we stopped by once or twice, but, you know, there was always something, like, you know how it is when you go into a lot of like more MMA based gyms. It's just like, I didn't care for the vibe. We'll put it that way, you know? And then Zach and Jam opened up 10th Plant Bethlehem. Excuse me. And my buddy Jonesy actually called me. He's like, dude, I found a 10th Plant in Bethlehem. We got to go. And we basically just showed up there like that meme where it's just like, take my money.
Yeah. That's really cool. I'm curious actually about the fact that like you were watching a lot of MMA and you were into MMA for some time before you got to jiu-jitsu. Was it like, why, you know, in the UK, even in Europe, the culture around MMA is still developing. It's still, I mean, it's been around. Obviously, people used to watch tapes and so on, but is it like in the US, has it been like a strong sort of thing for a while and people have grown up with it? And I don't know is it different, do you think?
It's tough. I would say I think it's definitely more mainstream in America than it is in the UK. I would definitely say that, but I still wouldn't say it's mainstream. Like, so when I worked a full-time job still, and like the guys would talk about like, you know, football, and they'd be like, oh, this player, blah, 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 this guy did that last night. They would be talking about that all the time, but only ever would they ask about MMA if like Conor McGregor was fighting. They'd be like, oh, that Conor McGregor's this weekend or something like that. Like if I said, you know, like, I don't know, something about like some random fighter who's not, you know, number one in the world, they would have no clue.
Okay. I see.
No. And so was there anything early on that really drew you to jiu-jitsu in particular? Because you said you were enjoying the mixed martial arts in the early days.
I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but I never really wanted to get punched in the face that much.
That's fair enough.
And I have like, you know, I had a wrestling background and stuff like that. And I didn't really know that there was like a jiu-jitsu scene so much, you know? And then once I figured out like, oh no, there's a really, you know, cool jiu-jitsu scene out there. And a lot of people just do jiu-jitsu. Like I kind of thought, you know, when I was younger and watching MMA, everyone just did MMA, you know? I didn't realize there was like a cool jiu-jitsu scene out there that was, you know, basically the same as wrestling, but way more chill. And I was like, oh, this is the shit. This is exactly what I wanted.
Nice.
So
how... Go on, Alex.
What year was it then that you joined the gym? The
gym? It would have been the end of 2014.
Okay.
Or no, end of 2013. That's what it was. End of 2013, beginning of 2014, right in that area. Because I was turning 20 when I joined in.
So there was already, I guess, the BJJ scene was already like fairly developed. Yeah, okay.
At least starting to, like, it was definitely like, there were competitions and stuff like that. But back then it was like, you'd have to drive a couple hours to go do a competition or something like that. But you had the option to do that. I didn't even know that was a thing. And now, like, nowadays it's like, there's competitions like 10 minutes away from where we live. And it's like, this is awesome. Like, it's just getting better and better and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And how are those early experiences with the 10th Planet gym? Because obviously you've just come from the other environment.
Mm-hmm. No, it was awesome. Like, I mean, it was different, but I liked it. Like, I remember like the first day I showed up, like, coming from a wrestling background, which is very like strict and almost like military, like at least the way I was raised in wrestling. And it was like, I remember showing up like 15 minutes early to fill out the waiver and offer to pay the mat fee and all this stuff and and like, introduce myself. And like, we didn't start till like 15 minutes after. And like, Zach's just like, yeah, man, fill out the waiver, make yourself at home, stretch out, whatever. And it's just like, okay, like a little thrown off, like waiting for it. And that's like, the guys would be like, hey man, you don't have to go like 100% the whole time. Like, you can and it's just like, I can, like, I don't have to be miserable. I don't have to hurt myself every practice. And they're like, no, just have fun. And it's like, oh, this is awesome.
And did you embrace that straight away? Or you seem like a pretty chill guy, but I've heard about wrestlers coming in being
meathead wrestling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I joke about it all the time too. And but I was for a little bit. I think most wrestlers are, but then, you learn to calm down. And one of the best things like I did in the beginning was Zach and Jam were like, John, you know how to wrestle. You did that forever. And just learn how to play guard. Learn something new first. Make sure you learn how to play guard. So I played off my back forever at the beginning. And that helped me learn to be, more calm. I don't want to say passive, but you know what I mean? Not be like constantly have to be like, I'm going to win every second of every round. I gotta go, get this done. But, it was more chill. And I liked that.
So for you, it wasn't like you didn't go in and did you get frustrated at the start that like people were doing techniques on you and kind of say winning the rounds in the beginning, or were you like, oh, whoa, shit, I didn't know you could do this, and you were pretty intrigued?
A little bit more like you're saying. Like, I remember in the beginning, like every time someone would caught me, I'd be like, wait, how'd you do that again? And like people would get like annoyed because I'd be like, no, explain to me how you did that. And then, they wouldn't get it as easily the next time. But, I was always like that it was like I remember JM telling me, like a year after my first practice, he was like, because he beat the shit out of me my first night, like just triangled me, go-go'd me, did whatever, because I was just trying to be like, meathead wrestler. And I'll admit it. And like, I remember like a year later, he was like, yeah, man, I had to put it on you. I had to show you it works. I was like, motherfucker, I knew this works. That's why I came in the front door.
How do you but you kept coming back after getting rinsed for a session?
Say again, I'm sorry.
You kept coming back though. You got smashed for a session.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was just like, like that was like, I remember that night going home and like laying in bed and just like looking at the ceiling and being like trying to like replay it in my mind, like what happened. Like, that motherfucker brought a shin across my neck and just like squished it. Like, how do you do that? And like trying to like figure that out and like thinking about it all night and stuff like that,
What was your motivation back then in that case? Did you set out at that point to compete, or did you just like the sport?
I didn't want to compete in the beginning. I did not want to compete at all. Zach is the one who convinced me to compete eventually. But like when I first got into it, like I said, I was 19 and I was going through like some real changes in my life, and I needed, as kind of weird as it says, I needed something to still feel like a kid, kind of like feel like young, like have some fun, because like I was getting like a full-time job and I was like, making some sacrifices that were, I thought the right choices at the time to like, progress what I thought was going to be my life, and I needed something to, keep me sane, basically. So that's why I got into it, and just like, it was better than lifting weights, something to do.
A lot more, a lot more interesting. That's for sure.
Fuck yeah. And it just slowly built from there, and then I started getting more into it, and like, then I started going more times a week and getting more into it. And then Zach eventually was like, hey man, like, you got to compete. So it was good. It was good. I was glad he convinced me to, but I remember really not wanting to in the beginning.
So what kind of? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Did you take some convincing then, or?
I definitely did, because I remember like he had been talking to me about doing one. I was like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for that Naga next month. And then like it came to like a week before that Naga, and I was like, Zach, I really don't want to do this. And he's like, that's okay, John. Like, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. And I didn't do it. And then like 2 months later, there was like a Grappling Industries or something. He's like, hey, John, like you really got to do this. Like you got to do it. And he talked me into it. And it was like, I'm grateful for him that he did, but it definitely took some pushing.
So what?
And what?
Oh, man, sorry, I keep cutting each other.
All right. My last bit, and then you do the next one. I was just going to ask, what was it that convinced you in the end? Like, what broke you down and made you do the competition?
I don't know what it was, honestly. I mean, I think it was mainly because like we had a chip on our shoulders for a very long time. We didn't get much respect. And, this was still back when 10th Planet was seen as kind of like a fringe thing and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, earning us respect. And I didn't like, the way some people tried to talk like JM and Zach and things like that. And, we wanted to go out there and show them like, hey, we got some hitters,
Makes sense. And so whilst you're doing that, so how were you managing your full-time job at the time and starting to train more? What kind of work were you doing? Was it physical as well? So did you have to like?
Yeah. I was a lineman for years.
Oh shit! That's actually my industry. I work in the power systems industry. Yeah.
No shit. So I can tell you then, because I actually worked in like substations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I did that for years for the local utility. I did that actually until 7 months ago, and that's when I finally quit. But it was tough balancing that shit, man. But yeah. I mean, when you love something, you make it work. And I mean, I sacrificed a lot of things in my personal life throughout the years, relationships, taking care of the fucking house, stuff like that. I sacrificed a lot of that stuff to make it all happen. But if you love something enough, you'll make it work.
And how many times would you usually train?
Usually at least 5 or 6 times a week. Like I was there damn near every night. I was there as much as I could. That's all I wanted to do. It's real. I mean, I'll be real. Like besides Jiu-Jitsu, I like cooking, and that's about it.
So obviously you're professional now. Obviously you've made that full transition across. But where we've got to so far, you've barely been convinced to do one competition, and at some point you're making massive sacrifices to make it your life.
Yeah, it went quick.
Yeah,
but no, it was probably between that first competition and when I quit my job, it was probably like 5 years, a little over 5 years, 6 years maybe, but somewhere in that range. But yeah, it just started like after that first competition. So that first competition I had 3 matches. It was I think it was a Grappling Industry. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I won my first 2 matches. I subbed the guys real quick. And then the last match I remember, I didn't know you couldn't heel hook. Like I didn't know heel hook was like a dirty thing back then. So I heel hooked this guy in the finals, and they're like, "You're disqualified." I'm like, "What?" And then Zach's like, "You can't do that, John." I was like, "You guys never fucking told me that." Like, but I remember after that one, it was just like I was pissed then, because it was just like, what the fuck, this stupid rule. And then it was like, all right, I want to do another one. And then it was like, I did another one and I won, and started going from there. And then it turned into, from doing like the Nagas and the smaller events, you know what I'm talking about, like the stuff you pay to doing the events that were like, for a little bit of money and stuff or doing super fights and stuff like that, like one-off matches on a show. Started going to there. Then it started getting to doing the tournaments for money, like with the finisher sub only and stuff like that. And that's when I was just like, oh shit, like you can make money doing this. Like the sport's the shit. This is way better than wrestling. There's actually money in it.
So what like,
go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just curious then. So you're, gosh, I might have just completely blanked my mind. Go ahead, Robbie. I'll think of it.
I was just going to say, I think that's why so many wrestlers, well, I know a couple move over to Jiu-Jitsu, like Rodriguez and stuff like that. But then I guess most wrestlers move over to the MMA side of things to make that money.
Most definitely do. Yeah. And it was like, once I found out, like, you could be, you know, a jiu-jitsu guy and make an okay salary, like, you know, it's not a glamorous lifestyle. I'm never going to have, you know, a BMW or anything like that. But, you know, I can live a decent life. I have a nice life still. And it's like, once I realized that, I was like, all right, this is the goal. This is the goal, to just be happy and do this. And that's what we've always been working towards.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so you kind of made the transition from starting jiu-jitsu to it being your life, well, your livelihood over, what was it, 6-7 years?
6 years or so, yeah.
That's, I don't know, maybe, do you think that's a short time, a long time to, well, it strikes me as quite a short time to make something that you can barely make money out of.
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't at the same time. Like, it's that old thing, like, you know, it takes a long time to be an overnight success type thing. Like, it was for years. Like, as soon as, when I was 20, I got, you know, my big boy job at the utility, where I was making really good money, and it was a union job and stuff like that. But I remember, like, ever since the beginning, I was like, I don't want to work here till I'm 65. I don't want to have to be here till forever. So I just, like, you know, I started doing things to position myself to make an exit one day. I, you know, invested real heavily in my retirement accounts. I saved a lot of money. I was very frugal for those years and stuff like that. And, you know, and then, you know, once I started making money from jiu-jitsu, when I won EBI, was the real money I got from jiu-jitsu. That was the biggest payday I got from jiu-jitsu. And I took that money and rolled it right into starting the school. So it was like, you know, I did a lot of steps that, you know, a lot of times I could have been stupid with my money. I wasn't. I did the right thing. It wasn't a fun thing at the time, but, you know, I did it so that one day it was always the goal to, you know, quit the job and just live life. But I don't know. Some people do it quicker. Some people are like, you know, if you got the balls to do that, to make sure I was established.
Yeah. I think I'm actually reading a book right now called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And it's a book about essentially building a career. So you get this, you get this, you know, everyone you ask, from like the top CEOs or famous people, they tell you follow your passion, which is, of course, it sounds like very, very good advice, and sounds like that's what you did. To be fair, you did follow your passion, but I think the caveat there is, what you've actually done is, like, you've built up the capital of getting the skills of jiu-jitsu over time, and also you've done wrestling. So, like, you've had a longer period where to get to the point where you're exiting and being able to sustain a living from the passion you're doing. It did actually, to me, like Robbie says, seems to think it's not that long of a time, but I think it is actually a fairly decent period of time that you've been doing it. So it's not like you just quit your job, right? I'm going to become a jiu-jitsu coach. And then you realize, you know, 2 months later, like, holy shit, I can't pay my bills.
Yeah, that was always the biggest fear, man. That, you know, that I wasn't going to be successful. That's my biggest fear in general in my life, is that, you know, to be a failure. I think that's everyone's biggest fear. Yeah. But, you know, that was always the thing, that it was, you know, do you know how many times, like, perfect example, when I qualified for ADCC, my best friend, you know, who originally got me into jiu-jitsu, was like, yo, John, like, you should quit and go full time, man. Like, you should do it. And you know how motherfucking tempting that is? It's like, you know, I do have money saved up. I could do this. Maybe I could make it work. Maybe I could make it work. But instead, you know, I hung on to that job for a little bit longer, stacked a little extra money, and waited till the school was at a proper place where it could support me. So there was no question if maybe I could do it, so that I can do this.
I think that's a super good lesson for a lot of people that might be in those positions. Is you don't have to just put it all on the line and go for it. You can do it steadily and make it more concrete.
Yeah, exactly. Do it piece by piece. Do it little by little. Take your time with it, because, you know, you got to make sure that shit's right, man, because you're going to be in a lot more trouble if you go and try to be a professional jiu-jitsu athlete and it's not working, and then you got to get a job for the first time when you're 30. Like, I didn't want to be in that situation. And like, now that I've quit and now that I've had a taste of the sweet life where I'm just doing jiu-jitsu all day, I was joking with a buddy earlier. I was like, I could never fucking go back. If you told me I have to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow and go climb poles or go, switch out a sub, I'd blow my head off.
So it's good planning and sort of discipline with the frugal side of things.
Yeah, definitely helped.
I know too many stories about martial artists from every sport. Who go commit too soon and just don't falter and don't make it work. Too many stories.
I waited to quit my job till I was a black belt. I had placed 4th at ADCC and I was an EBI champion owning my own school.
There we fucking go.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
already.
I wanted to make damn sure I was good.
you already own the school and you were still working. I
did that for about a year. Yeah, man. Yeah. I was going to quit sooner, but coronavirus fucked that up.
I mean, that's just, I fucking love that, John. That's great.
And how's the school doing now?
It's doing great, man. It's doing almost too good. We're packed. We're looking for a little bit more space right now. Hopefully we can make something work with our landlord, but we're doing great. We're at like 100 students already, killing it.
Sick. Obviously, you're good on the kind of business sort of self management kind of side of things, but you've also hit a super high level in your skill level in jiu-jitsu. Is there anything in particular that you attribute that to?
Yeah, the number one thing that I think helped me get good at jiu-jitsu was what I learned from wrestling. And when I say that, I don't mean I learned this double leg in wrestling that works on everybody or something like that. But like,
shit,
the work ethic wrestling taught. Like I said, like would do your whole life wrestling, and every practice is, like I said, break yourself, go harder, more. It gives you a great work ethic for the rest of your life, whatever you want. I've never had a jiu-jitsu practice as hard as a wrestling practice. I'll put it that way. And, it was just, maybe I can push a little bit more because of it, the mental toughness or whatever. But the work ethic from wrestling's what got me to where I am.
Just hard work and put your nose down kind of thing.
Basically, like I said, nose to the grindstone, man. And that's what wrestling always was. And like I said, I was not the best wrestler. I was an okay wrestler. I was a decent wrestler, but bringing that work ethic to jiu-jitsu was the number one thing that helped me. So I think a lot of guys are kind of lazy with their jiu-jitsu and they don't want to work hard all the time. It's if I'm, and for me, because I did have the full-time job and I didn't have the opportunity to train twice a day like I would have liked to. It was like when I got my chances to train, it was like, all right, like we're getting it in, we're getting our work in right now. It's time to work.
Yeah, and I think especially in the like jiu-jitsu culture, there isn't really, it's all like what is it, the acai bowls, surfing.
Exactly. That lifestyle.
It's pretty, it's pretty chill lifestyle. So I can see where you can be a little bit, you can progress a bit faster if you adopt a more of a wrestling mindset in that respect.
The hard-nosed mentality type thing. And, I don't know. It is like you said, like, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, it is more calm and that's great, but the thing that really separates it is jiu-jitsu is a business, wrestling is not. When it really comes to it, like if I treated my guys like my wrestling coach treated me, would they be mentally tougher? Yes. Would I have a third of the students I have now? Yes. It's just like with wrestling, it's like, oh, okay, you're a kid when you're doing it over here. So it's either your parents are forcing you to be here or you just fucking love it. And they would be mean to us, sprinting, doing sprints if we fucked up, if we didn't do something fast enough, doing it again. I remember many a times puking during wrestling practices, and it's like, but like jiu-jitsu, if I did that to the guys, I'd have like 3 students. Like nobody wants that. Like, that's not fun. I mean, does it get you tough as hell? Hell yeah. But is it going to sell memberships? No.
But
it's what's led to jiu-jitsu being successful, is that chilled out lifestyle.
It is. And don't get me wrong, I love the chilled out lifestyle. I absolutely love it. But you also have to have those days where it's like, I'll have chill practices where I'll roll with, blue belts, and I'll let them do stuff to me and put me in arm bars and shit. And then I have practices where, I act like you don't deserve to be on the mat with me, and I'm going to be a jackass to you, and I'm going to, be trying to hurt you and trying to go at you. Hurt you, not injure you. There's a difference. But, going at them,
And do you think then, so, of course, people that do it more recreationally, I guess it's good to get a bit of both, but mainly staying on the chilled side, which is fine. Yeah. And that sells memberships and keeps people interested. But do you think the good athletes, the people who are at the top of their game, most of them have this kind of grind mindset?
I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them have that mentality. Not all of them, obviously, but I think a lot of them do have that, chip on their shoulder, that mean streak, whatever you want to call it, or, they have that little extra edge. I do believe that.
We talked a lot about the wrestling side of things and sort of you as you developing, but what do you think makes like 10th Planet so special? I mean, interested to hear, because you've obviously, aside from not believing in the Earth being round, like what makes them different? What makes a 10th Planet unique?
Yeah, it's definitely our beliefs that the Earth isn't round. JFK wasn't killed by Lee Harvey. But no, the number one thing that, like, for me that made 10th Planet cool and made me love it was the fact that everyone's open-minded. Like, Zach and JM never were the type that were like, no, you have to do it this way, you have to grab them this way, you have to do this, blah blah blah, it has to be ABC. They were always just like, hey man, if you can make that work for you, that's good. As long as they would tell me if I was doing something stupid, obviously, but like, as long as I was like, kind of on the right track and like making it work, they never gave me shit. And they'd be like, make it work, John, figure it out, play it out on your own. And I really appreciated that, because if I went to somewhere where it was, hey, John, you got to bow when you come on the mat, and you got to call me sensei, and you got to do it how I do it, I wouldn't have lasted. Not for a second.
You had enough of wrestling.
I was going to say, that almost, yeah, Alex said you'd had enough in wrestling. It almost sounds a lot more similar to the wrestling, though.
Exactly. Because, and like I said, at that point, it was, I had enough of the wrestling. And if it was going to be more of that shit, I'm good. I'll pass.
That's fair.
Do you think then the reason why people were so open-minded, do you think it does have something to do with the founder of 10th Planet, like Eddie? No, I mean it in a genuine way. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a genuine way, because whatever you want to say about him, whatever you want to say about, what his beliefs are, he is an open-minded person. And obviously that has led to the fact that he developed this interesting new system of jiu-jitsu, because he wasn't bound by, right, everyone needs to wear a fucking gi to go to jiu-jitsu. Everyone has to do these things, bow, blah, blah, blah,
Eddie being open-minded attracts more open-minded people. And, there was a quote I really loved of somebody that I respect that was talking about teaching. They were like, when you teach the basics and you let the person define the rest of their own path. And it's, I really liked that, because it's like, I'll tell you if you're doing something, and it's the way I try and teach. Like, I'll tell you if you're doing something stupid, or if you're way out in left field here and it's not going to work. But for the most part, it's, if you can make that work for you, do it.
Well, nice. I think that's a really interesting philosophy, and to me, it sounds quite appealing, to be honest, because it is then a lot of, I guess, that's when you can have things innovating in it as well, because if you're bound by certain, restrictions, you have those restrictions, the level to which you're going to be able to innovate is going to be more difficult always.
Exactly. And like you said, it invites innovation. And it's just that, there's tons of times that somebody who no offense, isn't at my level of jujitsu, says something and it makes me think of something or a different way, or it's like, motherfucker, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I see that? One of those. And it's just like, you know, having more eyes on something and more opinions on something is a good thing a lot of the time. You know, sometimes is it like, no, don't give your opinion on this dude. You're a white belt. Of course. But like, you know, most of the time it's just like, you know, somebody could see something else. And if you, you know, take a second and try and see it from their perspective, you might learn something.
Well, isn't it quite a thing in I don't know, maybe this is completely true. It's that people coming from non-traditional taught backgrounds in other fields. I'm not talking about jiu-jitsu here. People come from sort of non-traditional or self-taught backgrounds. You know, they're not consistently the best, but they do now and then become massive innovators in a certain field.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, sometimes, you know, is it the best way to, you know, be self-taught and try and be an innovator? Not always. Most of the time it is better to, you know, the basics are the basics for a reason, you know, type thing. But, you know, you got to have your own flavor to it, you know, kind of type thing. Like the quote I gave earlier, it was from, like I said, the only other thing I like to do besides jiu-jitsu it's from a famous chef. And like he was talking about with cooking, like, you know, he would teach the basics, you know, how to make things and how to do things and the techniques and stuff like that. But like, you know, you run wild with it. You put your own spin on it type thing.
Yeah, cool. No, I see that. And so what do you think, one thing I do wonder, if it's Eddie's personality and the background of jiu-jitsu that's brought all these like-minded people to him, 10th Planet still isn't, it's large, but it's not like, you know, some of the Gracie gyms.
No,
I kind of wonder... But it's very well known, and I get the impression it's growing very quickly. Is there ever any concern that maybe 10th Planet growing so quickly might start to erode some of that if it becomes too unwieldy?
I mean, I think it's definitely possible that if, you know, it gets too big and how do I put this? There needs to be structure. There still needs to be structure. But there can't be so much structure that it causes close-mindedness. You know, there needs to be the right amount of, you know, like, and I think 10th Planet does have that because, you know, we're like, still like, hey, we teach the warm-ups, you know, like, you know, we have the warm-ups that everybody teaches and stuff like that. And there still is some structure. But, you know, then advanced class is kind of like, you know, throw your own flavor on it, you know, do your own thing, teach your guys what you're good at. And it is good. But like you said, there does still need to be some level of structure.
Yeah, no, I see that. It's interesting though that 10th Planet is quite well known for like for the leg locks side of things. You've not bought into the sort of standard thinking that they are this banned, uber powerful, uber dangerous technique. Clearly, because you were doing it in your first competition.
Yeah, I mean, Zach and JM taught us that from, you know, the very first day we were doing that kind of stuff.
Do you think there's any moves that shouldn't be taught, or do you think this is definitely the right way to do things?
That's hard to say. There's definitely, I'll put it to you this way. I think everybody should be exposed to everything. And if you're going to compete, you damn well need to know you should know of everything. So that, you know, even if you don't know the intricacies of it, you know, like, hey, leg locks are a thing. And stuff like that. And you need to have an idea of how to defend them and stuff like that. But like, you know, if it's fundamentals class, I'm probably not going to teach, you know, hip tosses and shit like that, because then next thing you know, everyone's throwing each other and everyone's getting hurt type thing. There's a time to learn everything. I'll put it that way.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. See that? And I guess we're kind of coming towards the end of this now. I guess you got 10 minutes or so more until you need to get in there.
Yeah, I'm about 10 minutes. That'll work.
Cool. Well, look, what I kind of wanted to ask you now to start wrapping things up, where do you want to go and what do you want to do in the sport?
The main thing, if I could have, you know, one accomplishment that I said was, you know, that's my goal in the sport. I want to win ADCC. That's the number one thing I want. I would love to be an ADCC champion. Maybe I'll never make it there, but I'm going to try my damn hardest to get there. That's my goal on the competitive end of it. And the goal, you know, in the jiu-jitsu end of it, you know, in general is just, like I said earlier, I never want to work a day job again. I want to be able to support myself, living my dream. And right now, I wake up every day and I can do that right now. And it's, not to sound corny or anything, but it's a blessing, and I appreciate it. And I hope so much that I can keep doing this for the rest of my life. That's my real goal.
Well, I wonder about that then. How, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, John?
I'm 27 right now.
You're 20. Yeah. So you've still got, to be fair, you've still got a few ADCCs to go before you start getting over the peak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And do you think, do you have a plan from here for ADCC? I mean, you've got it all mapped out if that's your main goal, because you do sound like you plan pretty well and pretty far in advance.
Yeah. I mean, we're working on that. I mean, there's other goals in the meantime, smaller competitions and things like that. But if there's like, a top goal, that's always the goal. That's always in the back of our head, is like, we want that. That's what we want.
And then what about your coaching side? Because of course you own a gym. Do you find a lot of fulfillment out of coaching? Is it I mean, it's hard. It's going to be hard for you to say no because you own a gym. So if you kind like, I fucking hate coaching, it won't look good on you, I guess.
Guys.
But I'm sure most people who I mean, if you started a gym, you clearly enjoy it to some extent. So is there anything on the coaching side that you think, other than the fact that you want, be successful enough that you can keep it as your job and not have to work any other job for the rest of your life? Is there any specific goal other than that in the coaching side?
No, of course, like you said, of course it's fulfilling coaching. I mean, the number one thing I get fulfillment is out of my kids' class. If we're going to be real, because I love watching the kids, gaining confidence and, or even little things like a kid that couldn't do front bridges before, but now his neck's strong enough that he can do front bridges, or he can do push-ups or stuff like that. Like, that's so fulfilling to see for me, more than the adults. Cause it's just like, holy shit, that kid didn't have the ability to do this, or this kid was like, scared and in his shell all the time. And now he's like, smiling and laughing and joking around with the kids. And I'm like, watching him hit arm bars and stuff like that. And he's got like, he's confident in himself. That's the most fulfilling thing to me. And I just want to keep doing that. And, watching, people progress in their life and become more confident and, better shape and things like that. That's the most fulfilling thing for coaching in my mind. That's
awesome. I think it's so true as well. And someone who I really enjoy listening to is a guy called Jocko Willink. You might know him.
Yeah.
And he's like, he always talks about like everyone should do jiu-jitsu from a very young age. Like, and it seems to me, it makes so much sense. Like for what you're saying, it's for building the confidence of kids. It's a pretty safe environment to do that as well. Because especially like jiu-jitsu is a bit more approachable than, let's say, wrestling, right? Because wrestling is a bit more
intense.
Yeah. And so many kids who wouldn't have this ability to get out of their shell, maybe jiu-jitsu would be a place to do that. So I think that's amazing that you find joy in that as well. That's great.
Yeah. And it's one thing I didn't think I was going to enjoy teaching kids at all. And now I couldn't not do it. I enjoy it too much.
That's cool. We hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, please consider subscribing to the podcast and checking us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram under the name Combat Thoughts. We'll see you next time.